Running an agency doesn't have to feel like juggling flaming chainsaws. At Schmidt Consulting Group, we help you ditch the chaos, land more clients, and even enjoy running your business again. No fluff, no BS, just strategies that actually work. Check us out at schmidtconsulting.group because your agency deserves better.
Join us as Kurt Schmidt welcomes LinkedIn strategist Nicole Osborne to share how to break through fear, show up authentically, and unlock business growth on LinkedIn. Don't miss these actionable tips to boost your authority and connections.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidt List. I'm your host, Kurt Schmidt. I am excited you're going to meet my new friend, Nicole, today. Nicole, how are you?
Oh, I'm excited to be here. We've been planning this for a while, so I'm really pleased today is the day.
Today is the day. So, Nicole, tell my audience a little bit about what you do and who do you like to work with?
So I'm Nicole, the founder of Wunderstars. I'm originally from Germany, but I'm based in the UK, in Kent, in Maidstone. My ideal clients are either really thoughtful agency owners or tech founders who usually do amazing work for their clients, whether it's digital transformation or SaaS products. But they find it really difficult actually to show up on LinkedIn in an authentic way. Not the kind of AI hype and 100 times growth, but actually really authentic with their human voices. So I work with them on a done with you strategy program. I call this the LinkedIn Activator Playbook, as well as coaching. It is so important for founders to get involved in this because this is certainly something you can't just easily outsource. So this is what I do, and I've been doing it now since 2019. Obviously, I'm still a spring chicken, Kurt, right?
That's right. Yes, exactly. Let's talk. I want to jump right into the elephant in the room when it comes to LinkedIn. It's a very polarizing place. Some people really enjoy it and other people loathe it. And the word that I hear is cringe. And now a lot of that usually comes from younger folks, right? But I also hear it from all walks of life, Why is LinkedIn so polarizing?
I get it. You either love it or hate it. Frankly, I see it as a business tool. Now, if you can make it work for your business and you get the returns, which makes your time spent on it worth it, and you can find some enjoyment, then excellent. So I really think it depends on what you want to do, who you want to attract. I like about LinkedIn that I don't feel that I'm interrupting people's day because they're there to learn something new, make new connections, talk about business, talk about their struggles, their challenges, their hopes. So I really like that about it. Now, what I don't like so much any longer, it used to be a platform where you could just really achieve a lot with organic marketing. One of the reasons why I really felt drawn to it is very efficient and you could do a lot without actually paying for paid media. Now, this is changing, as with all platforms, and we have to work through it and latest algorithm, this and that. But frankly, we're not doing this to please an algorithm. This is about getting in front of the right people who people would love to work with for their companies. And I think for that, LinkedIn is still the most powerful platform out there when it comes to social media networking.
And so you work with a lot of leaders in this space. What is their challenge? I mean, the ones that I've talked to, obviously, just, number one, they're like, I think I should do it, but I just don't know what to do. But there's also, again, I think there's a bit of, they don't want to be that guy. I hear that, some version of that phrase a lot, Nicole. They don't want to be that person. And talk to me about like what's the mindset that you try to help these folks with when it comes to LinkedIn? Because I think it works for anybody. People finding a job, people trying to grow their business. What sort of mindset should I have with LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. We hear this all the time, right? LinkedIn is not Facebook. If I put myself out there, what will my peers think? Another LinkedIn Berlin Wall of Fear I hear a lot is I have nothing interesting to say, or maybe I'm not expert enough. So people end up sounding really stiff or they post nothing at all. And it's a little bit like you and I when we first connected. Of course, we found it really interesting what we each had to say, but we connected as human beings first.
Mm-hmm.
So the mindset shift is seeing it as a platform where you meet people and you have individual conversations. You need to listen. You need to know who you want to talk to. And also be realistic. Isn't the sort of thing where you have overnight success. Of course, this is what a lot of people want us to believe. But truly, no one waits out there and sits on LinkedIn and says, today I want to buy something. Founders need to build trust. It takes time. They have to be really targeted with their efforts. So yes, have realistic expectations and just trust yourself as a human being. With curiosity, you can attract the right kind of people. Just be focused and just know everyone has those LinkedIn Berlin walls of fear. And it's your opportunity to actually push through it. One post, one story sharing, and just one braver decision at a time. We can do it. And good, I'm sure you agree, whenever we do something good for our business, it happens in the zone of fear, doesn't it? This is where growth happens. So people want to use LinkedIn well. It's time to step into that and really push those boundaries.
Yeah, the advice I give people is that you have a reputation, and it's up to you to let other people control that story and narrative, or are you going to at least contribute to it? And I think that's where I like LinkedIn. And people already do this. I know people who post to Instagram all the time, but then they think LinkedIn is like someplace taboo. And I think, again, it goes back to, like you said, like, what are my peers going to think? What are people I used to work with think? And, people I'm connected to. And the first thing I tell them is nobody cares. Nobody cares. Why does nobody care? Well, because you haven't given them a reason to care. Yeah. You're saying no for other people. That's what my mom used to always teach me. Don't say no for other people. And that was a very powerful lesson I learned when I started going out and starting to look for jobs and look for clients and different things as I was building my business, is that, I'd grown up waiting for people to pick me, right? I submit my resume. I fill out an NDA, and I respond to an RFP, and I'm waiting to get picked. And I figured, like, that's sort of how business and life just goes. And then when I got a little older, I realized, like, oh, I can just pick myself. And once I did that, everything changed. And then I became a lot more confident on LinkedIn and other platforms, because I had just decided to pick myself. And I think that was the most powerful transformation for me.
That is really, really, really fascinating, that insight, because often what holds people back with LinkedIn is actually some really outdated beliefs, which are not serving them any longer. I think you and I, when we first met, we started talking about jogging and how I said I was so proud that 3 times a week I go jogging. And frankly, I don't see myself as a natural runner, because I hated it at school. We didn't have the right sports bras in Eastern Germany. They were shouting at us. So 50 years later, I'm now starting to go, 40 years later, I'm now starting to go jogging, because I decided this belief is outdated. It's not serving me. Let's get a really good sports bra. Let's have some motivation. And frankly, I went jogging with my son, and I wanted to show him his mother could do it. He gave up and I carried on. So find out why it's worth actually voting for yourself, advocating for yourself, and how you can push through that pain barrier. I love that story, Kurt. Mothers are the best, right? Let's just say this.
That's great. First of all, I do have to make a comment about sports bras. Being from Germany, I would figure with famous German engineering, there would be the best sports bras available out there. That's
not in former Eastern Germany. Sorry, I have to make that distinction. When the wall came down in 1989, I was 13, and bras in former Eastern Germany were really bad unless you were one of these athletes, which were really pushed to compete. And I wasn't.
Okay. That context is helpful. Okay. Anyways, I digress. But, there is a lesson there, because I think getting out of your comfort zone is something that's scary for anybody, right? And I totally understand that. It takes time to learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The way I described it to a recent CEO I was doing some coaching with at an agency was, I had to get to the point where I was bored being nervous. So I had to do it so many times that I just got that being nervous about it was just kind of boring, and I just got on with it. And I don't know if that's just a natural skill or if it's something you got to teach yourself. And I'm guessing that you probably have some frameworks and things that you work people through that helps them get through that, right?
Yeah, I found out really early on that it's not so much LinkedIn know-how. And of course, it's really important to know what the latest algorithm is and, how you can optimize things. But it isn't actually a lack of knowledge. It really is that fear and the motivation. So yes, I do have frameworks, and one of my favorite tools really is the M Code, which tells people what their motivational makeup is. So what sort of activities do they feel drawn to, or what other things they really like to avoid? And I do this really early on in the journey of working with people, actually as part of the onboarding, because when you tackle something people are not comfortable with, it really helps to figure out, how do they normally get things done, what really, really motivates them. So sometimes maybe I would set challenges slightly differently, and I would explain to people why maybe being unique or evoking recognition with not their favorite thing. It's not the thing they get out of bed on a Monday morning. And yeah, in terms of frameworks, I think it's really important on LinkedIn to go beyond just sharing thought leadership, because yes, thought leadership is really important, but without relatable context, without showing people what your values are, your beliefs, your unique expertise, it's so easy to ignore thought leadership, right? So my latest framework, and I've been working on this on for a while, is actually how people can become that relatable expert. The expert which shows I have sound judgment, I get you, I know the problems you're talking about, and I'm talking about the things you care about versus the things I care. When I say you, I mean, your ideal buyers, because we really want to show that we can walk in their shoes. So yeah, really important to work all these things step by step, and yeah, pushing people out of their comfort zone, but also letting them learn by making some mistakes, by having some early successes. So yeah, I really enjoy doing that with my clients, absolutely. And I'm sure that's exactly what you did with that CEO. You helped him feel less nervous.
Well, I mean, again, I try to teach from experience, and I don't go as in depth as you do, and I don't work with people as long and for but I try to get the ideas across that it is more of a mental blocker than it is a technical skill, because you can't learn a technical skill until you get over the mental blocker. So speaking of technical skills, let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn as a platform. Like you mentioned earlier, it used to be really good for organic growth, and now they've kind of turned that ratchet down. What are some of the big changes you've seen over the last couple of years in LinkedIn, and where do you see things going? And what should people be thinking about or being focused on when it comes to using LinkedIn as a platform to build authority in their space?
Yeah, so great question. So first of all, some of the key principles of classical marketing really haven't changed, right? Know who you are talking to, what they care about, how that links to your services, and really be very specific who your company can help the most. Use all of that juicy insight to really optimize your profile and your company page. So really make sure that it speaks to your audience, that it's really clear who you're for, how you help them, what impact they can expect. Because everyone always worries about posting. I do as well. But really, if your profile isn't set up correctly, you can really lose that click completely. So do that first. In terms of the developments, at the moment, of course, everyone is talking about 360 Brew, which reminds me always of coffee. But essentially, it's the language model which LinkedIn uses to classify our trustworthiness, who they should put our posts in front of. So it's actually really important now to be really focused on who your niche audience is, and picking 2 to 3 core areas of topics you're interested in, they're interested in, and consistently talk about those. Consistently engage with the audience who's interested in that. So it does feel a little bit like they're putting us for a little while in a jail. For argument's sake, because beforehand you could be more organic with what you talk about. Now you really want to be structured to really train the algorithm who to show your content to and what you are an expert in. So yes, write for the algorithm, train LinkedIn, but also know there's a human at the end of it, right? So really, I would say concentrate 50-50. In terms of where the platform is going, we are going to find even more additional ways of increasing premium subscribers. There's a new model coming out. I've not been given access to it yet. Obviously, we have Sales Navigator. We've got LinkedIn Ads. So it's going to go to a place where really it's that clever combination of boosting your most successful organic posts, doing some thought leadership ads, maybe if you have a free webinar, boosting that. I've actually brought a paid ads team on a paid ads expert on my team, because nowadays you can't have a really effective LinkedIn strategy without considering what the options are in terms of amplifying your posts and getting more in front of your audience. In terms of where it's going, I would like to see it going to a place where actually the platform more and more still rewards really authentic content. And it is actually at the moment there where, you can't comment with AI. It kind of really says, no, don't do that. You can't have engagement pods, which is a really, really good move. And I want to see more of that, because we all get sick and tired of posts which all have the same templates. And it's the same stories. 10 years ago, I timed X this, and I had this strategy and it taught me that. So I really want to see more encouragement of these human stories, because let's face it, we learn, yes, partially from data, right? Of course, data and statistics are really important. But we want to know someone has been in our shoes and faced similar challenges and really learn from these unique insights. So I hope that whilst, of course, AI content creation makes things more efficient, I hope the platform still remains focused on human stories and elevating them.
Yeah, that's the danger with the Facebookification, right? Where people are like, well, it's it's becoming more Facebook. But again, I think that Facebook isn't even Facebook anymore. So it's a weird comparison, like, because what you're seeing in the people that you're actually interested in, just like you said, they're telling relatable, they're giving relatable information, not just information, not just here's how to use Claude Code or something. And but it's like a personal story about something that a transformation, right? Again, any good story that you can go and read, like, the perfect story arc, and it's been used for thousands of years in human history. We're still the same people. We like a good story arc. We like to see what's happening and what's the transformation and what's the result. And
most people, when they hear you and I talk about stories, immediately their place of fear goes into this negative inner chatter. Oh, I can't possibly overshare. I can't possibly share anything too private. And Kurt, I absolutely agree. Being more relatable on LinkedIn isn't about oversharing, isn't about being louder. It's actually about being really strategic about the stories you are sharing. Moments which show what you believe in, what your values are, how you deal with complicated situations. So those I would classify as private. If we then go to, okay, so what's too personal? Too private, apologies. I just make so there's personal stories. What do you think about? What are your values? How do you deal with complicated situations? And then there are stories which are way too private. And those are the stories where they don't serve your audience. They don't serve their business. And Kurt, you mentioned your mum earlier. I always think, what would my mum say if she saw this on social media?
Right.
Frankly, my mum isn't on social media. So it really is my guard for saying, what would my potential clients think and say? Is this something I want them to see? And Kurt, once you've chosen those stories, it's such a powerful marketing asset, because suddenly you build up trust and people are ready for your expertise to land with them because you've got that trust with them. And it's such an important step that you think about, how do we become a relatable expert on LinkedIn?
Yeah. And again, you don't have to dive in and start posting every day and start, making videos and becoming an influencer and all these things. Like, what I find with some of the best leaders that, I follow and work with, I mean, they're just sharing when something comes up, but it is consistent. It's not once a month or anything. It's usually once a week at the minimum. And it's really interesting to follow their story and their journey. And I find it interesting because, again, it's a place I go to learn more about what's going on and what people are up to. And the thing I always tell people, every single client that I've ever gotten from LinkedIn has never liked a post or commented on a post.
Yes.
They've never engaged. So people are like, oh, what's the stats and the numbers? I don't care what my stats and numbers and impressions and all those things are. What I care about is my conversions. And that's all I care about. Because I on LinkedIn, I haven't had necessarily a growth problem, but it's always been a conversion challenge. And a lot of people, it's easy to grow, but it's hard to convert. And what I find is that most of the clients that or prospects that I pick up via LinkedIn, they don't engage with the content. They're looking at signals, just like we look for signals. And like, is somebody buying or not buying and those sorts of things? They're looking for those trust signals like you talked about. Can I trust this person? If I contact this person, are they going to give me a hard sell? Can I just ask them a quick question and they're not going to like send me 15 emails afterwards,
Absolutely. It's so funny, isn't it? We treat measurement on LinkedIn like a little bit what we were taught at university, right? Oh, we're going to be on the platform, we're going to see you post, and we're going to sign on. But that's not the reality. The reality is someone is looking around to learn something new. They are looking for these trust signals. And the best thing you can do is that when they have a problem you constantly talk about, they already know you and they see you as someone who can help you with it. So at least you're worth of getting that call to be pitching to them. Or maybe someone in their network says, hey, oh gosh, you're looking for such and such, or you've got to speak to Kurt. He's amazing at agency transformation. So you really have to pick, what conversations do I want to be part of? What do I want people to think when I'm not in the LinkedIn room, and be really strategic about it? But yes, I do have a model, a Wunder content model. Essentially, it's got 4 tracks, and one track in there is very much dedicated to lead generation. So it's post either, for example, polls or something which is really a particular problem and how I solve it, and encouraging people to reach out. So I do think it is important to design a certain percentage of your post to really be at both middle stages or the end stages of conversion. But do know, you won't get any engagement or hardly any engagement on it. And that's absolutely fine. If that one person reaches out to you in the DMs and you get them on a call and they sign up to your program and it's done its job. Those vanity metrics can be very exciting, of course. But if they're not converting, then it's absolutely pointless, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Well, and that's, again, my strategy has been pretty simple, is that I post things that I think people are going to find interesting and engaging. And then in the middle of that, I post things that are more direct, more call to action-y. And what happens is my impressions sort of just sail over, even though that those get less engagement, my impressions still just kind of sail over that gap and move on to the next one that's going to get more stuff. So what I see is that all those people that are liking my content, interacting with my content, lingering on my content or whatever, they're still going to see that post. And then, but I'm not going to, even though they don't engage with it, I don't lose that momentum because I move right on to another, more or less CTA type thing. But it's important, to your point, that I remind people what I do, because people don't remember. People don't remember. Like you mentioned, your profile being the first thing you need to really focus on, because I should be able to look at your profile very quickly and understand, what do you do and how do I work with you?
Yeah.
Right. Very quickly. And is it that I hire you as a business? Do I hire you as a person? Do I hire you as a contractor? Like, those are important things business owners want to know right away when they're looking to solve a problem, because how you engage with them also will impact how they choose who can actually help them as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to be optimized for search, whether that's search on the platform, but also search via AI tools. And Kurt, you had a great article recently about what you learned from LinkedIn, some of the people you talked to. And one of your points you've made in there is, yes, absolutely optimize for search, but know that you are selling to a person. So what talking points can you actually offer which show that he's human and that makes it comfortable for someone to reach out? So I think you talk about biking, right? Biking. I talk about being married to a Brit and loving pretzels because I'm from Germany. So find something you can mention which shows what kind of person you are.
Yeah. Yeah. That you're real, right? That you're not AI and that
Yeah.
you're not somebody who's actually, in Southeast Asia pretending to be a person in New York
Yeah.
that's selling stuff, right?
Yeah, you've got to put something real in there, and even though that might not be optimized for the algorithm, but for the person who does find you and it actually is digging deeper, you want to have some talking points, some stories which show what you are about. So, for example, one thing I do, I set up a business when I had a toddler. I was probably a bit mad. The toddler's about a year and a half, and now he's 11. So I talk about sometimes about being a working parent. Because most tech founders, agency founders, they have kids as well. So it's something they can relate about. One of my clients, he's a tech founder, and every now and then he talks about the challenges of digital parenting, because his clients, marketing directors, will react to that. This is something we can all relate to. So find the thing you have in common with your tribe. What is it you can talk about? Which, if you think about, if you and I, we met at a party or a networking event, if we want to make it memorable, we'll talk about something human.
Sure.
I'm not going to say to you, Kurt, how much is your program and how quickly will I see ROI?
Yes, exactly. Hey, wait, can you sign this NDA before we start networking?
So don't be afraid of showing that side. Now, don't go over the top. So it can't just be all stories, all related to content. You really have to show your expertise as well, but be strategic about it and don't be afraid to experiment, because Kurt, the thing I see most often is that people have this drive to make things perfect, and then nothing is ever good enough. They don't let themselves learn what lands with their audience. And you just lose out on these opportunities to your competitors who might be more comfortable on LinkedIn. You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, like again, things I learned from my parents is, people's opinions of you is not as fragile as you might think it is. So it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you'll be fine. Like,
absolutely. What's the worst thing that can happen? You can delete a post. Can I just remind people of that?
Exactly. Look, exactly. Elon Musk does it all the time. You can delete, you can just say crap and just delete it, and just nobody cares, right? Even though, people will screenshot his stuff, but they're not going to screenshot your stuff. So you'll be fine.
Right. And surprises you when you do share a story with impact which catches the attention, people remember it. And you mentioned earlier really wisely about the silent community on LinkedIn. So people who are on LinkedIn, they might react to something, they never comment because they're not their thing, they feel shy or nervous about it, they don't want to come across as
exactly
weird.
Yes.
But the moment you bump into them into an event or they pick up your newsletter, you will find out that, oh my God, they've read this story, they remember this, and it surprises you. But if you never share any stories like that, you're really missing out on the opportunities.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times when I was building my agency, back in the day when I was that I'd be in my third or fourth meeting with a client, and we're talking about a very large project and all this stuff. It'd be third or fourth meeting, or we'd be in the workshop to start scoping the project and things, and they'd mentioned something about how they liked my LinkedIn stuff. And it was like, well, we're connected. Because usually, like, if I got a prospect, one of the first things I do is connect with them on LinkedIn, right? So I can learn more about their background and who they are. So I can have an easier conversation with them and ask them more questions and learn more about them, right? But they didn't really like to post. They never commented on it. Like, there's nothing, And I was just like, it's just crazy to me. But I see why people get turned off of LinkedIn, because again, if there's this silent majority, right? Because what's the stat now? Is it like 4% of users actively post regularly each week or something?
And actually that's, they differ, but the latest I heard was 1.8%. So you actually, even if you just post, you mentioned earlier posting once a week, that is a really good frequency. I usually, if you really after growth, 2 to 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of people don't post. So you have an opportunity to be in the top tier by just posting once a week. Do you know, Kurt, the thing I always find that people always used to complain a lot about email, about how spammy it was, right?
Yeah.
We still got on and used it for our marketing, didn't we? It's very valuable too. With LinkedIn, if the majority of people are being very spammy and doing the salesy thing, as in, they connect with you and immediately you get a pitch which is not relevant to you and you never even ask for it. If you can demonstrate ethical selling skills, so consultative selling skills, so actually really building a relationship first and providing value, serving them before the idea of sales comes up, then you stand out in a really good way.
Yeah.
Every challenge is also an opportunity. I feel the biggest challenge is that people just won't use the platform if LinkedIn doesn't find a way to manage the spam, right? Because we do get way too much of it. But it is an opportunity to also stand out and to connect in a genuine, good way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Nicole, I could talk to you all day, and I'll have to have you come back on the show, but I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for sharing as much as you did with everybody. If I want to get in touch with you, if I want to connect with you, obviously LinkedIn's probably a good place. Where should I go?
Yeah, absolutely, Kurt. Thank you so much for having me. And LinkedIn is the best place. So search for Nicole Osborne. My website is wondersales.com. But yes, LinkedIn will be the easiest way. And anyone who has a question, just wants to tackle maybe some of their fears, I'm always happy to share some advice and tips to make LinkedIn a better platform for as many people as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome, Nicole. Thanks again. If anybody has any questions, I'll have links in the description so you can find Nicole easily. Thanks again, Nicole. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Schmidt List. If you found this episode useful, a quick review goes a long way. To learn more about the work Kurt does helping businesses grow with more clarity and profit, visit schmidtconsulting.group. Have a great week.